well, since the very beginning, we were competing in soccer.
Yep.
We were competing in working out, in the marathon, and so many things that we were competing. And so now that we're competing in business together, though, I think that's something that really has helped the business and benefited the business.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Driven. My name is Alexis.
And my name is Juan.
And today's topic is going to be going into business with your siblings. And the reason why we're doing this topic is because we've been together in business for over 5-6 years.
Pretty much.
So yeah, we're just going to go over what it's like running a business with your sibling, the pros, the cons, and then the reason why we decided to get into business together. So let me just ask you that question. What was the reason why we decided to get into business together?
I think it was just a natural thing that, just because we lived in one apartment with, by ourselves, well, not by ourselves, with our parents. And so and also when it comes to connections, we really didn't have any connections. And so I think, starting something by yourself may be daunting. But then I think because we had each other, I think it made the process of starting a business a lot easier. And so since we were always pretty much together, I think we just, when we had the conversation, it's just it just made sense because, we're two individuals with, that wanted to, we had one common goal. And so I think that's the main reason. Also, the main reason why is because we had the same goal. If you remember, it was to retire my mom and my dad too. But that was our main goal.
For sure. I mean, like we mentioned before, we saw our parents go to work, struggle day in, day out, just go to work to give us, just the bare necessities. I'm not saying we were poor or anything. It's just, they sacrificed a lot, and, we saw that day in, day out. We saw that, there was some moments that it was hard, to pay the rents, especially in the downturn, the bad economic. It was very hard, and, we saw that growing up. So one of the reasons why we got into business is just to be able to provide for our parents, to give them something better, to give them a better future. That's one of the reasons why. And like how Juan mentioned, my brother, that it was just easier to go into business together because one, we had that trust with each other. Two, we had that confidence, and we pretty much think very alike. So it just made sense. And I think one thing to mention is that the trust. The trust was there. That's why it wasn't a no-brainer, but it was very easy to make that decision to just go into business together.
And it wasn't a decision. I think it was just, I feel like it was more just natural. We just started doing stuff together, and then naturally just progressed into the business relationship that we have now. So, because how I think it was just more of it was natural, I think.
Yeah, because growing up, we did a lot of stuff together. We got into the same soccer team. So it was years after years going into the same soccer team. We had the same group of friends because we're only 2 years apart. So from that soccer team, we had a few group of people, just hanging out. So we had a few people hanging out, and we would go to the pool during the summer. We would go out to eat. They would all come to our house or to our apartment after each game. And so it's just pretty much we did almost everything together growing up. And so it just little by little, like how Juan mentioned, it wasn't just one big decision. Okay, we're going to go into business just because we're brothers. It was just more of we had the same goals. We had the same interest, and, it was just made sense to follow that path.
So one of the questions that I think some people may have, especially the ones that, want to start a business or are wanting to do a business, especially if they have family member that have a similar mindset and they want to do similar things. What would you say are some of the positives or the perks of starting a business with your family? After
being in business for quite a while with my brother, there's definitely a lot of perks. Some of the reasons why we do have those perks is because we have the same goals, which is, provide for our parents. So because we have the same goals, every decision we take into business, we're pretty much aligned. So we have our the same mission, the same goals. So it's just every decision, there's no battling back and forth, because at the end of the day, it's just for the betterment of, ourselves and then, the family. So one is just trust. You definitely one of the perks is you have trust, because if it was a stranger, I'm pretty sure it'll be a lot more difficult to kind of, especially with the bank information, the income coming in. It's just if you haven't known the person for a long time, it's just very hard to trust that person. And I think that's one of the biggest perks that that you would have is with a sibling. Is just if you really do trust them, like you're gonna have that trust.
And yeah, so the trust is, I think, the main perk, I would say, or the main benefit of it. Because like Alexis mentioned, my brother, if if there was like, if I would have started a business with someone else, or he would have started a business with someone else, I mean, maybe there might have been some trust, but maybe not as much. Yeah, so that's for sure one of the biggest ones. And then I think also another one is that we're able to make decisions relatively quickly because we're able to adapt quickly, because we have similar goals. Because there was at one point, I think we were gonna bring in some partners.
Yep.
But then kind of looking at things like, like we did not have the same goals, and so pretty much every decision that we made, we would have had to talk. Whenever we had it to adapt to certain things, we would have to talk and kind of see what's the best, what fits, what's the best decision for everybody. And so that, I feel like, could have slowed us down. But just working with your siblings, I think you're able to make decisions better, faster, and quicker, and for the betterment of yourselves and your family. And so I think that's also one of the biggest perks, that we're able to adapt quickly, and the decisions that we do make are for the benefit of us and the family, as opposed to having to benefit all partners involved, which we may not have the same goal. And that's kind of like the problem that Quest had, where I think there was the three main owners, remember? Where they pretty much had different ideas of the business. And so like they eventually they sold it, but they pretty much had three different routes, three different things that they wanted to do. And so, as opposed to kind of like which isn't bad, because they sold it for a lot of money, but as opposed to us, that we're able to make, and I'm not comparing ourselves to Quest yet, but we're able to make decisions a lot quicker and faster, and for the benefit of us.
And just to add on that, it's kind of like if me and my brother need to make a decision, we can make it the same day. Like let's just say the business is doing really bad, sales are dropping like really quick, we need to make adjustments or a decision, we can make it the same day. If we had partners coming in or people that were didn't have the same goals in mind, then it could probably take a week, 2 weeks, up to a month to make a decision. And that's definitely like in a business, like that could be the end of the business.
Yeah, because then I was thinking like when you were mentioning that, like some of us might want like short term, like let's say there was different partners, like thinking of the short term, making it as profitable as possible, and others might have the long term, playing it out, maybe not as profitable now, but investing in the business and then just seeing out for the long term. And so when there's like different goals there, or different when there's different goals, that can kind of cause like some how do you say, not, I guess you could say problems in the business, where like there's different, like the different owners have different goals, and it's harder to come to a decision. And so, but as I think we have, and so when you and your siblings probably more likely than not have similar goals, so I think it's a lot easier to work with someone like that.
So I do have another question that I'm pretty sure a lot of the people listening and watching do have a question, like especially going into business with your siblings, your family members. I know we mentioned the perks, the benefits of going into business, but what are some of the cons, or what are some of the negatives that people may have going into business with their family member?
I know that it varies also from people to person to person, because how some dynamics of other siblings are different than ours. So some are more like just some are more intense. Like some are like just not that they hate each other, because at the end of the day I think they do care for each other, but it's just the dynamic, like they're always like butting heads, they're always clashing and stuff. And then there's others that are just very just their relationship is just very fluid, dynamic, and they can get along. But for us, I think one of the negatives is, I think, because we grew up, we pretty much know each other since birth. I think we know each other so well that sometimes when we talk to each other, it may come off to people like we're mad at each other, or we're pretty much just arguing and stuff like that. But usually it tends to be the case that we're just discussing. And so that's one of the negatives.
Another one of the negatives is because we were new to business. We haven't we're relatively young. We're Well, I'm 26, you're 28.
28, yeah.
So we didn't have that experience in business, and you know, just jumping into business with your sibling, you bring like everything, like from growing up, you bring it into the business, because at the beginning it's very hard to separate the two. So there's really no structure like in the business. So like if you have, you know, like disagreements or arguments or, you know, like anything, it's so easy to, you know, bring that into the business, and it's very hard to separate that. You know, like I know we dealt with that a few times. It's you know, we may have a disagreement, and you know, it just like it's a mixture of the two, and it's very hard to separate, like I mentioned. Yeah. And another thing is that like again, like I mentioned, because we are siblings, you know, like the inexperience, but then also like bringing in the emotions, like, man, you know, like F my brother, you know, like he could go screw himself, and you know, like without meaning it, but then again it affects the business because the lack of inexperience, and we're just bringing emotions into it.
Yeah.
So that's one of the, at least for myself, that's one of the cons. But at the end of the day, you know, again, it's just we always like push for the goal of the, you know, the company, for the goal of ourselves, which is, you know, just our parents, you know, providing for them.
Yeah. And then when as you were saying that, this is more of a positive though. It's, I think that we're competitive with each other.
Yeah.
And so when we're competitive in the business setting, I think that's just a benefit to the business and to everyone, you know, all together. Because since you know the very beginning, you know, we were competing in soccer.
Yep.
We were competing in working out, in the marathon, and you know, so many things that we were competing. And so now that we're competing in business together though, I think that's something that really like has helped the business and benefited the business.
Yeah, for sure.
So I mean, that's not a negative, but that's more of a positive.
Yeah.
That, you know, if you have that dynamic with your siblings, then definitely that's something that will benefit.
No, that's definitely true. I agree that the competition definitely like just pushed us to be better, because you know, like and it's a little bit of the ego, like, man, you know, like I know I could do this better, like kind of like, or let's see who could do it better, let's see who could produce more, let's see who could sell more, let's see who could get more, you know, customers in. So definitely like that definitely helped the business. But then also like we do it with no bad intentions, no like in Spanish they say rencor. I don't know how to say it in English.
The word is resentment.
Yeah, resentment. So definitely like do it without, you know, holding, you know, like resentment like long term.
Yeah, but I think one of the things that is really good about, you know, us being in business together is that we pretty much just talk about business 24/7.
Yep.
That's pretty much all we talk about.
Yep.
And so that, you know, when we're at home, we pretty much just talk about business. When we're here, we talk about business. And so it's very rare that we don't talk about business.
Yep.
And so that's also one of the things that you know, helps us keep like things, you know, separate in a way. But because really like our mindset is, you know, business or competition or you know, like or you know, things that are going on in the world, but mainly business. And so like I think that's also something that has helped us you know, not, you know, bring things that are outside of business. That, you know, pretty much our only interest is, you know, business. And so that's something that's helped for sure.
Yeah. And one thing that's been stuck in my mind, that I know like two entrepreneurs, two brothers, they've been in business for a while selling insurance. One of the things, you know, we got the chance to talk to one of the brothers, and one thing, you know, like he recommended us, especially because that was the question we asked him, you know, like what would he recommend for siblings going into business? And his answer was, at the end of the day, you guys are still brothers. You guys are still siblings. Like, you guys are still family. You guys are blood. So don't let the business get in the way of your relationship. And yeah, like to this day, it's like, yeah, at the end of the day, we can have disagreements. We can have different viewpoints of, you know, like the business, the direction of the business, which, I mean, our direction, you know, like it's pretty much the same. But like if you guys do have like disagreements in the business, at the end of the day, you guys are still going to be family.
Yep. And so one of the negatives also with starting a business with your sibling or family member is that you guys may not have the skills that are required to grow the business or to get it to a stage where it's, you know, a good stage, a good size. And so we're going to have to learn different skills that are required to grow the business and to run the business. You know, so that's one of the negatives, that you may not have the skills, like, you know, because you know, there's a good chance you're very similar. So you might not have all the skills that are required to. So then as, you know, the business grows, you guys are going to have to learn different skills. You're going to have to attain different skills that are required to grow the business.
So now we're gonna be doing a speed round of questions. So we're gonna answer a few questions, and these are some of the most common questions people have when going into business with your sibling. So the first question is, how do you handle disagreements in business decisions?
Yeah, so I think that one we pretty much discuss what it is that we're when we have a disagreement, we try to see what the disagreement is about and talk about it, and then we try to get down to the the most like the core of the disagreement, and then we try to use logic to come out with the best solution. And so it's just pretty much getting down to the core and seeing what it is, and then just trying to in a logical manner, like what makes the most sense.
Yep.
And so I think that's pretty much how we handle disagreements.
Yeah, and one thing I'm gonna add is try to keep emotions out of it. Just try to use your facts or logics or your like logical reasoning to why you want a certain thing in the business.
So the second question I have for you is, how did you decide on the roles each of you would play in the business?
So at first, the way we decided is because we already had knowledge in a certain aspect of the business. I know like our first business, which was clothing, you already knew the marketplaces. You already knew Amazon, eBay. You already knew Amazon and eBay. So I think it was automatic. Like you took care of that while I took care of other things, like maybe the laborious things, because I didn't have much of knowledge in that. And then when it comes to our current business, it was the same thing. You already knew the marketplaces, so you took care of that. And like I took care of the imaging and like the media stuff. So definitely like it's I know like everyone's gonna have their own strengths coming into the business when it comes to sibling. So I mean, if it isn't clear in the beginning, just sit down, see what our strengths are, see what our weaknesses are, and then just go from there and assign roles. Okay, next question. Have you ever had a situation where your sibling relationship negatively impacted the business?
I don't think we've ever had one that affected it. I mean, we've had disagreements where it maybe could have affected it, but I don't think we've ever had it's because we just found a solution to it, but I don't think we've ever had a situation where it actually like affected the business itself. Okay, next question. Do you ever feel like your relationship as siblings is taken less seriously in the professional world?
From my experience, we haven't, dealt with that. Actually, it's the opposite. A lot of people, they're intrigued. They're like, they're like, damn, you guys are in business together. You guys are brothers. That's freaking cool.
Yeah.
So like, it shouldn't. And I haven't, we haven't experienced that to the day. So I would say no, it hasn't negatively impacted.
Yeah, more intrigue than anything, huh? Because people are like, oh wow, you're working with family, like, because I feel like maybe many people have had experiences where they worked with their family and maybe didn't have the best result, but so people are always intrigued with like when we go to the bank, or when we're ever making go somewhere, they're always very intrigued as to that we're in business together.
Next question. How do other family members react to your business partnership? Has it ever caused any family tensions?
For us, it has never caused any tensions or anything like that. In fact, this kind of help bring kind of topics of conversations. But I don't think it's caused any tension or anything like that. Okay, so next question. If you had to do it all over again, would you still choose to start a business with your sibling?
I for sure would do it again. And then the reason why is because the trust is there. It's just the comfortableness, and we had the same goals. So like, because we had the same goals and because we had the same trust, like it just makes sense to do it all over again, instead of maybe looking for another partner that you don't know how he is or she is. So definitely I would do it again. Next question. What's your advice for someone about to start a business with a sibling?
I think just knowing each other's strength, and then from that, seeing the roles of each individual and what they're going to do. Kind of like how we started in the beginning, I kind of had experience in e-commerce. And so that's pretty much what I took charge of. And then for you, we still have to do the images and other stuff. So that's pretty much what you took care of. So knowing each other's strengths and seeing what each person's role in the company is going to be. Next question. How has your sibling relationship evolved or changed since starting the business together?
I think with that, it's definitely matured. We've gotten to know like each other, like, growing up, like that's all we knew. But then, like going into business, that's a different side, the professional world, seeing, the capabilities of each person. So I think it's matured.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So that's the end of the questions. And just to wrap it up, there are a lot of benefits of you going into business with your sibling or your family members. Like I mentioned in the beginning, if you do have that trust, if you do have that same mission, it's going to be a lot easier. Like, for us, we had that trust because we grew up together, living in the same room until we were what, 20, 21, 22,
24, I think.
24. So, in the same room until we were 24. So the trust was there. We had the same mission and the same goal of retiring our parents, giving back to them because, they sacrificed a lot for us. So we had the same goal. So like, all of that together, definitely, it just made business easier. So those were the benefits. The negatives, I know that one or the other sibling may not have the skill, to continue growing the business, or, the other person may have different goals. Maybe the trust isn't there. Maybe the drive of both siblings or both family members, or maybe just one of them may not be there. So like, a lot of tension could be created, and, down the road, it could definitely just affect the relationship of that. But yeah, like I mentioned, it's just, I know it's from case to case. Not every sibling is the same. I think on our end, we were lucky of, both of us having the same goals, the same missions, and at the same time, the same drive.
Yeah.
So definitely, like, again, it's just case by case. And, like, it's up to you guys to decide and, to actually, like, sit down, take a look if it even makes sense.
All right, everyone. This was another episode of Driven with Juan and Alexis. If you have any questions, comment down below. And thank you guys for watching.